here, coming to you from Erbil, Iraq today. It is kind of starting to be a dust storm out here, and so if it gets too bad, I might actually have to go inside. There's a lot of stuff happening in the Middle East right now, and we're going to try to get to all of it right now as we go through what's happening in Israel, what's happening in Yemen, in Syria, here in Iraq, and elsewhere around the Middle East. Especially what just happened that is not really making the news between between the Israeli Air Force and the Turkish Air Force. This is news that just came out this morning, and what it says is that the Israeli and Turkish Air Forces had something of a confrontation over, what is it? Oh, it's a little cat meowing at me. Something of a confrontation over Syria last week. So, we're going to talk about that and say, does this mean that we could see direct conflict between between Israel and Turkey over Syria, or what? And I think it's bad, but it's not quite as bad as it sounds. So we're going to talk about that more in just a second. While you are here, folks, do me a favor and just type into the chat box where you're watching from. That's always fun to see, and it also tells the YouTube algorithm that lots more people need to see this content. We find that about 57% or so of the people who watch these lives every day are watching for the first time. They're new viewers. And so you guys help bring in those new viewers by posting questions in the chat, by interacting with me. And that's why we use this format, because it's pretty awesome that we can, Charleston, West Virginia, it's pretty awesome that we can kind of do a two-way discussion here, and you guys can make questions and comments, and I can talk about the things that you want to hear about. So that's why I like doing these lives on YouTube, and we've been doing them since the beginning of the war in Israel. At one point, at the beginning of the war in Israel, 570 something days ago, we had more people watching me live on YouTube every night than watched Anderson Cooper, at least according to the Nielsen ratings. But that's declined as the interest has declined in the war in Israel. But there's still a lot of you out there who want to hear about what's going on with the war in Israel and all the things happening in the Middle East. So I wanted to start with the tensions between Turkey and Israel. So here's what happened. May 4th, 2025, reports emerged of a significant aerial encounter. That's what they're calling it. A significant aerial encounter between Turkish and Israeli fighter jets over Syrian airspace during a large-scale Israeli airstrike targeting pro-Turkish militias in Syria. That would be HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, which we can talk more about whether they're actually pro-Turkish or not. Turkish fighter jets reportedly entered Syrian airspace and issued, quote, warning messages, unquote, to Israeli aircraft. Turkish sources claim that their jets also jammed Israeli aircraft electronics during the operation. The Israeli Defense Forces have denied these reports. That's from three sources: the Jerusalem Post, the New Arab, and JFeed. Now, let's break this down, okay? If Turkish aircraft penetrated Syrian airspace whilst the Israelis were engaged in a mission against HTS. Now, when you read deeper into the report, it doesn't make clear whether this was Turkey coming in with hostile intent or this was Turkey coming in to see what was going on or what. Now, you have to understand how this works. There's a phone line that has been set up for Syria that everybody has access to, especially the United States and Russia, that we've used for years to do what's called deconfliction with our, not allies, our adversaries over Syria. So, for example, during the war against the Islamic State, you had American aircraft that were bombing ISIS targets, and you had Russian aircraft that were bombing ISIS targets from the Syrian-controlled side. And we did not want to get into a situation where Russian and American aircraft were bumping into each other, or, God forbid, shooting at each other in that melee. And so we established a back-channel phone line where we could call the Russians and say, hey, listen, we're about to operate in this grid square. You know, this quadrant over here is going to be a little busy for the next little while. So don't shoot at us, just so you know where we are. And the Russians would call us and let us know when they were performing operations for the same reason. Now, I don't know if that phone line still exists, because the Russians have pulled their Air Force out of Syria by and large. Now, when we were in Qamishli yesterday, was that just yesterday morning? Gee whiz. Qamishli, Syria, up on the Turkish border, the Russians still hold the airfield there. So there is a Russian base with some Russian troops there, and we saw some Russian attack helicopters on the tarmac. They're not flying a lot of missions, I can tell you that. There are probably about 3 places in Syria where the Russians are, where they still have troops. 2 of the 3 are over on the coast in the Alawite-controlled areas. I don't know if they're Alawite-controlled or they're just Alawite-inhabited, because the Alawites are pretty weak at this point, and that, I think, is part of the reason why the Russians are keeping troops there, is to sort of keep the Alawites from getting genocided completely. I'm not sure about that. Now, HTS has been alternately hostile toward Russia and sort of ambivalent, I guess, is the best term. So Russia pulled most of its troops out of Syria, and it just has a few troops left there. But since Turkey is a NATO ally and Israel is a close ally of the United States, I'm kind of surprised, or I would be surprised, if the Turks were not advised of the fact that Israel was about to do a mission inside Syria, unless the Israeli Air Force did not first alert the United States that they were going to do that. And that's a possibility as well. They have done some things unilaterally without letting the U.S. know, but that was mostly under Joe Biden, specifically because they knew that if they told the Biden administration what they were planning to do, the Biden administration would then pass that information along to the enemy and give away the op. So but they don't have that problem now. So there's nothing in the articles I read that says one way or the other whether Israel alerted the United States before they did this mission. I'm just saying I would be surprised if they didn't. But if they did, I would be surprised if the United States didn't just give a courtesy call to Turkey and say, hey, stay out of the airspace up there. Now, the quote-unquote warning messages that they're talking about are fairly standard procedure. If you've got jets from 2 armies coming into the same battle space, they usually will call each other and say, hey, just so you know, we're up here. So don't, I mean, that's just deconfliction. That's standard deconfliction strategy. And it's standard operating procedure for the Air Force. So it's not necessarily hostile. That's what I'm getting at. And this is important to understand. When you read the reports, it's obvious that the people who wrote the reports don't understand the concept of deconfliction. And so they're writing it as if this was the Turkish Air Force coming in and confronting the Israeli Air Force about what they were doing in the area. And that very well could be the case. That could be why Turkey came in there to begin with. Now, the reports that the Turkish Air Force was jamming the electronics of the Israeli Air Force are being reported in Turkish media, but there's no proof of that. And it's not likely, because the Israelis are far and away more technologically advanced than the Turks are. So the Turks have F-16s, and so do the Israelis. But the difference is, when the Turks got the F-16s, they taught their pilots how to fly them, and they get refresher training. They go to they do joint training with the United States and things like that. But they just kind of fly them as they got them, more or less. The Israelis, on the other hand, went through every system in that F-16 and upgraded it, improved it, and then turned around and sold the new version of the F-16 that they had, the completely upgraded version, back to the United States. And now the United States uses the Israeli updated version as their standard model of the F-16. But I don't believe Turkey has that model, and so the F-16s Turkey is flying are inferior, they're older models than the F-16s that Israel is flying, and that's to say nothing of the F-35s that Israel has. So it hasn't been reported which aircraft Israel was using to strike at the targets in Syria, but there's a fair to middling chance that those aircraft were F-35s, and it would be a little more difficult for an older F-16 to be able to jam an F-35. Israel, like I say, is denying that this happened. They're saying they did not jam our electronics. And so from the Israeli side, it sounds more like the Israelis were doing a mission. The Turks flew some aircraft in there to kind of find out what was going on and made a courtesy call to the Israeli Air Force to say, hey, we're up here, don't shoot us. And that's it. That could be all this is. But because the reporting is ambiguous, we don't know. And that's something that we have to deal with all the time, don't we? I've talked about this ad nauseum on this channel, how it frustrates me that there are so many journalists who try to come and report on the wars that don't understand the arcane technical culture of the military. And so they really don't know what they're talking about. Any green painted vehicle, like one of these Land Cruisers behind me, is a armored vehicle or a military vehicle or even a tank. CNN seems to like to call everything a tank, whether it's a BMP, BTR, M113, a Bradley, it doesn't matter. None of those are tanks, by the way. They're just armored vehicles. An MRAP, a Humvee, oh, it's a tank going by. I even heard him one time when the National Guard pushed into New York City for something to quell some unrest or pull security for something, I don't remember. But they had Humvees rolling through the streets of Manhattan, and people were filming them and going, there's military tanks rolling through Manhattan. No, that's not a tank. If it has tires on it, it's not a tank. Okay? So, look, journalists can be forgiven for not being able to distinguish an Mi-17 from an Mi-8 helicopter or something like that. Even a Black Hawk from a Huey you know, if you're a 20-something that just got out of college and never spent any time in the military, how would you know the difference between those things, right? But I think that that's where I can bring some added value to my reporting, because I did spend 8 years in the military, active duty and in the Guard. I flew helicopters. I was an Army Ranger for 4 years, jumped out of airplanes. This is in the late 80s and early 90s, so one of the things that we were required to do, we had these decks of cards, and we had to, these decks of cards had every Soviet vehicle, whether it was aircraft or ground vehicle, on it with the designation. We had to memorize all of those things. So that's a Soviet BMP, you know, things like that. Or that's a T-72, or that's a T-64, or that, you know, whatever. And I never imagined that that knowledge would come in so handy in my career after the military, but it does. It comes in very handy. And so this event that took place, where Syrian militia groups were getting bombed by the Israeli Air Force, and Turkish aircraft came in and were in the same battle space, in the same area. It's not like they were, you know, pulling a Top Gun and, you know, coming down on top of their canopies or anything like that. They weren't, you know, going nose to nose with them or playing chicken or anything. They were just in the area. And I really am going to choose to default to believing that that's all it was. They just came to see what was going on, and they made a courtesy call to the Israelis to let them know they were in the area, and just warn them. You know, that's a electronic warning. Hey, we're here. They weren't lighting them up with their missiles or anything like that. At least there's no reports. There's no information that suggests that. Despite this incident, both nations have expressed a desire to avoid direct conflict, and that would be a really good thing. We definitely want them to avoid direct conflict because they're both large, powerful militaries. The Turkish military is larger, I believe, than the Israeli military, but the Israeli military is more sophisticated and definitely more combat proven. So if they did go to war, it would likely be in Syria, first of all, and it would be ugly. It would be ugly for all sides. And so we want to avoid that if at all possible. Folks, I'm coming to you from Erbil, Iraq tonight, and I'm using my Starlink right there. You can see my Starlink there behind me. You guys help to pay for that Starlink with your donations, your little super chats and super thanks. And so if you got a nice clear signal tonight, thank you for making that possible, because the internet here is a little sketchy, and it's only this thing that is giving me enough connection to be able to do these lives. And I carry this thing everywhere I go. It's about the same size as my laptop. It slides right into my backpack, and it is sweet. I'm actually running it off a battery. I want to show you this because this is cool. This is the battery that's running the Starlink right here. And this little thing, it's not very big, and it weighs about a pound. That'll run my Starlink for 4 hours. And that is sweet. That's amazing. So just carry 2 of those batteries. I got a full day of internet, and I can be charging one while the other one's running the Starlink. It's just pretty sweet. Okay, so let's move on to Gaza now. There's been some updates in terms of Israel's plans. Yesterday, oh yeah, you want a Toyota like this? I tell you what, these 75 series troopy model Toyota Land Cruisers are the sweetest vehicle on planet Earth. I am totally convinced. I own one in Panama, V8 turbo. It'll fit 13 people, and I can put a bed in the back, put the seats down, and put a mattress across, and go camping with my wife and bring the dogs along, and it's got tons of space, and it'll climb right up a wall. I mean, the thing is amazing. It is really one of the best 4x4s ever made. Okay, so the IDF now approved a plan for full-scale occupation of Gaza. So no more is the IDF going to say, all right, we're going to designate these areas we're not going to go into, and we're going to take this area over here, and then we're going to move on to this area over here, and we're going to be pushing people out as we move around Gaza. Now they're saying, we're going to send so many troops into Gaza that we're going to have troops in every part of Gaza all the time. We are going to saturate Gaza with IDF troops. There's going to be nowhere for Hamas to run to. Because that's been the problem up till now, is the IDF goes into a neighborhood, they allow the civilians to leave, Hamas takes off their uniforms, and they go, oh, we're just civilians. And they pass right through, or they escape through tunnels. Israel goes in, clears out all of the military hardware, any launchers, anything like that, and then they move on to the next neighborhood, and everybody comes back to the one they just left, and Hamas comes in, digs up all of their hidden caches of weapons, reopens all the entrances to the tunnels that got blown up or whatever, and just keeps on rocking. So it's just like a game of whack-a-mole at this point. But the IDF has changed their mind. They're changing their tactics. They've called up almost 50,000 new troops. Excuse me. Get my water here. They've called up almost 50,000 new troops. And God, it's so dry here, you wouldn't believe. Yeah, I'm going to turn the camera around for a second, just so you can see how hazy it is. Look down the street there at how, I mean, that's not fog, that's not clouds, that's dust. And it's, ugh. So, yeah, it's just so dry here and dusty and everything. So the IDF called 50,000 new troops. Those troops are going to be sent into Gaza. There will be more troops in Gaza than there have ever been, maybe in history, I don't know, at least since 2005. And they're not planning on leaving. Now, Israel is saying, we are now going to take all of Gaza and hold it all the time for the foreseeable future. Tim says, how's the water over there? Over here? You don't drink tap water here. We have a bottled water machine. I wouldn't drink the tap water. But bottled water is fine. So when this happens, the IDF pushes all their troops in and goes into the designated safe zones that they've set up. The Hamas fighters are going to have to fight or lay down their arms and lose everything. Now, this is going to be harder than it sounds. First of all, it's going to definitely lead to more combat. You get more troops in the field, you're going to have more troop casualties. There's a greater political cost to this, and especially in this case because they have 59 hostages still in Gaza. And this is going to increase the chances that those hostages will be killed. No question. They've actually said that. I mean, this is something that they're admitting. And the protesters in Israel are pretty upset about this. And they're saying that that the IDF is prioritizing territory over hostages' lives. To that I would say no. The IDF is prioritizing ending the war over letting it drag on for another year or 2 or 3 or 4 or longer. So the Israeli Security Cabinet unanimously approved military control of Gaza, including territorial occupation, displacing populations southward, and establishing a civilian-managed aid corridor in southern Gaza. So what they have been saying is that the IDF has decided that they are going to distribute aid to people and not let NGOs do it. So NGOs can bring the aid to the Kerem Shalom crossing, for example, drop it off, and the IDF will take control of the aid from there, escort the aid into Gaza, and then set up distribution centers around Gaza that will where they will pass the aid out. But now they're changing their tune just a little bit. First of all, the NGOs that provide the aid are saying, we're not going to accept that plan, and we won't bring any aid if the IDF is going to take control of it. To which the IDF ought to say, okay, fine. We'll end the war faster, and there'll be more hungry people in Gaza. Now, Gaza needs 200 to 300 trucks of aid per day to survive. Up until March 19th, they had 500 to 600 trucks a day coming into Gaza. So they were getting double the aid that they needed to feed everybody. And that extra aid was being stockpiled by Hamas. And there you go. So Israel decided March 19th, we're going to stop funding Hamas with this aid, stop allowing NGOs to contribute to Hamas's control over Gaza, and we're going to stop the aid altogether. Well, now it's been a couple of months, and Israel, some factions inside Israel are getting a little concerned that there may actually begin to be some hunger problems inside Gaza. And so they're saying, we're going to have to start allowing aid back into Gaza at some point. They haven't set a date for that yet, okay? Yeah, I saw the videos that Amir Tsarfati put up that showed people in Gaza getting aid, and it shows people milling around. I actually posted that video over on chuckholton.com if you want to go see it. You can go to chuckholton.com, and it's up there. And it shows these people getting food. There's a lot of people and not a lot of food being shown, but I'm not sure that it proves that the people are not hungry. It just proves that the people standing right there are alive. That's all. They could definitely be hungry. But whatever, the Israeli Knesset has decided that they are going to have to allow aid back into Gaza at some point in the near future, but they have not decided what date that is yet. But when it happens, the Israelis are going to keep tight control over the aid. But they announced today a slight change to that plan, and that is, okay, we're going to set up these distribution centers, and likely we will be the ones that are going to secure them. So we'll have troops around them, keeping them from getting targeted. But the actual aid will be distributed by American contractors. Now, here's something that I want to mention about American contractors. First of all, there have been American contractors working in Gaza for more than a year. We brought those American contractors in to help vet the people who were moving from southern Gaza back to northern Gaza back when the ceasefire happened. That was part of the deal. It looks like I'm about to get rained on, in which case I'm going to have to run undercover, but we'll see what happens. It looks like it's getting pretty dark over there. Look at this. The sky is getting real dark off that direction. So we'll see what happens. It's starting to feel like rain for sure. So these American contractors are former U.S. military guys, former U.S. soldiers, getting paid a lot of money to be inside Gaza, armed, but you know what they're not? They're not, okay, Luca needs to go. What they're not is they're not IDF troops. And so that was part of the deal is, you know, for that ceasefire, the Palestinians are saying, we do not want some IDF troops controlling our movements or checking our cars or whatever as we go back and forth. So they came up with this plan to bring in American contractors to do it, and they've been there ever since. So it's the same companies that are doing that. But let me just give you my opinion about the American contractor bit. First of all, it's cheaper for the US government to use American contractors for many things. And that's because when you use US troops, there's a political cost to using those troops, because if a US troop gets killed, that goes on the wall. That's another grave at Arlington National Cemetery, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a payout that has to take place to the family, and all that. So politically, it's expensive to lose troops. Contractors, on the other hand, they volunteered to come over here and they're getting paid big money to do it. And if they get killed, hey, they get an insurance policy, pay their next of kin, and that's it. There's nothing else left. And there's much less political cost for the politicians. With that in mind, the last few years we were in Afghanistan, most of the missions were being done by contractors. And I'm not talking about Blackwater guys, just Blackwater guys. I'm talking about DynCorp. I'm talking about the pilots flying the helicopters, the crew chiefs working on the helicopters, the door gunners manning the guns in the helicopters. Just almost everything. I personally went on missions in Afghanistan where there were 0 US troops involved. They had 50 people on the mission, and it was all either Afghan troops, foreign special forces like the Norwegians or the Kiwis or something, maybe a DEA agent or two, and some contractors. And that was it. And doing like full-on combat missions in Afghanistan. The troops we had in Afghanistan were not being allowed to go on missions because of that political cost. And so they were stuck guarding concrete blocks for 6-8 months. And they were not happy campers. Because look, nobody joins the military thinking, man, I hope I don't get to do anything for the next 6 years of my life. I hope I get sent to some godforsaken hellhole on the other side of the world, taken away from my family, and oh yeah, we got thunder and lightning coming. Taken away from my family, and I have to sit there and look at the T-walls and never actually get to do anything exciting. I mean, the reason I joined the Army back when I was a 17-year-old kid was to travel to interesting foreign places, meet exotic people, and kill them. That's what we used to say. You know, tongue in cheek, but in reality, why do you want to spend your entire enlistment training to go to combat and then never actually find out what it's like to be in combat? So at least for me, as a soldier, I wanted to go to combat and at least once to see what it was like and to see if I could prove myself in combat. Now, once you've been to combat, you don't want to go back. There's no soldier that goes like, I love that. I mean, if there is a soldier out there that just loves combat, that guy's a little concerning to me. I don't want to really hang around with a guy like that, because you got to be a little bit psychotic to enjoy the terrible, terrible, terrible things that happen in combat. I mean, even seeing the enemy get killed is traumatic, even though that's kind of how it's supposed to work, right? If things are going well, the enemy dies, you don't, okay. But even seeing that happen, you really don't, okay. I think I'm going to start moving it. I'm going to move around the corner a little bit because this is about to get wet. So bear with me. So anyway, you know, even seeing the enemy get killed is traumatic. And as well it should be. If it wasn't traumatic, there would be a problem. Okay? So I'm going to move around. The Starlink can get wet, so I'm going to move around over here. And we'll go under cover. And I'll hope that the Starlink will reach that far. I'm not sure that it will. We'll stay right here until it really actually starts to rain, and then we'll run for it. So, contractors distributing the aid in Gaza, I'm not sure if that's a great idea or not. The people of Gaza are going to be more likely to accept the aid from contractors, even if they're Americans, than they would be from the IDF. They're very afraid of the IDF, and they really hate the IDF, so they don't want to accept aid from those guys. But the IDF is still going to have to be there because they're going to have to secure the distribution points. Otherwise, we're going to lose a lot of Americans, a lot of contractors, as these points get attacked by Hamas, because that's exactly what's going to happen. I promise you, those distribution points will be a target for Hamas. Okay, now it's starting to rain. So I'm going to come in here. It's going to calm down, folks. Let's just hope that the internet holds out. If it doesn't, I can always switch over to another. There we go. All right, now we're undercover here. How's it going? So I'm not sure that this is a great idea, but it might be the least bad idea that they can come up with at this point. Okay? Might be the least bad idea. That's just like going to have to do. Now, they are also continuing to, and even more calls for moving Palestinians completely out of northern Gaza, and some people are saying completely out of Gaza altogether, meaning we're going to find a place to relocate the Palestinians and send them to Egypt, send them to Jordan, send them somewhere else. But, woo, yeah, it's going to start coming down here. If that's still highly unlikely, because many people are just not going to agree to that. They just won't go, right? So now there's not much in Gaza, and I wanted to bring this up as well. How's it going? You want to come here for a second? You want to say hello? Everybody, this is Delo, and Delo is the best Iraqi translator, fixer, all-around great guy that you'll ever hope to meet. Delo, how do you think this mission to Syria went?
Yeah, it was a great mission. And as you know, you were with us, I remember, in 2019 during Syria Canyon.
We got shot at a lot.
Yeah, the mission was great. We had a lot of meetings.
This time it's much.
Encouraging people. They were so happy, like that we are still standing with the people in northeast Syria, in like all the communities, Arab, Kurd, Yazidis, Christian. So that was wonderful mission.
It was really good, and I'm glad I got to do it with you.
Yeah, thank you.
I love spending time with you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You guys pray for Delo. He's got a hard job here in Iraq. He's kind of the guy in charge when the team is not here. So he's got to take care of all these vehicles. You see all these FBR vehicles around, and and keep up the safe house and make sure everybody gets paid, and just like he runs everything, and he does a great job, and he's a good friend. So let's see, I got sidetracked. Wanted to talk about moving people around in Gaza. Look, you heard me say that it takes 200 to 300 truckloads a day just to feed the people in Gaza. And that has been the case for years, like a long, long time. The Gazans have not been self-sufficient really ever. There's just not enough land in Gaza to grow all their own food. And so they've got to get food from outside. Of course, because they have this penchant for bringing in explosives and missiles and things like that, they have to be sort of blockaded to some extent to keep them from trying to kill their neighbors. And as I often say, if you're going to be that kind of person, if you're going to be that kind of people group that just lives to try to destroy your neighbors, well, you can't have nice things. And if Gaza is unable to support itself through trade and agriculture and improving the world around you, because you really, that's how you make a living, right? You go find something in the world that you can make better, and people will pay you for making it better. And you find something you can improve on and make somebody's life easier, cheaper, faster, safer, whatever. And that's how you make money. That's how you improve your own world. And the Gazans they don't do that. The only thing they focus on is how much they hate the Israelis. And as long as your entire worldview is centered around who you hate, you're not going to have a very good economy. And if I feel like if you're not willing, this is some serious lightning coming out, and it's starting to come down. Last night it hailed here, so this is monsoon season. But if you're not willing to try to improve the world around you, you should not be able to survive. The Bible says that if you won't work, you shouldn't eat. So if the people in Gaza cannot survive without someone else giving them what they need to survive, not even selling it to them, but actually donating it to them, if it's an actual, dependent state, we're going to call Gaza Dependistan, well, then it shouldn't exist. Those people should get sent somewhere else where they have an opportunity to grow things, make things, build things, fix things, and improve on the vehicle. Oh, okay. Okay. Tell you what. Just go get the Starlink and bring it over and put it on that vehicle right there. But bring the battery pack and everything. Okay. Sorry, I didn't know you had to take that vehicle. But you should have an opportunity, whoever you are, wherever you live, you should have an opportunity to improve, sell, fix, protect, grow, raise. And that's how you make a living. If there's no chance for your people group to do that for themselves where they live, then they really ought to go live somewhere else. And that's just my opinion. But otherwise, you have this Dependistan with 2.5 million people that literally are going to die if someone else does not work to support them. And frankly, I don't know that there's anybody on planet Earth that should be responsible for them on an ongoing basis. I mean, charity is one thing. If somebody's in need, then we should give of our own largesse to help the people in need. But you can damage people by doing that if you let it go on too long. The goal of helping people that are in need is to get them to a point where they can do for themselves, where they're no longer in need, right? And so, you got it?
Is that okay over there?
Where is it? I don't see it.
Top of the hole of the other car.
No, it's got to face that way. I won't get as good a signal. Yep, just like that. Perfect. Thank you. So the whole point of charity is to get people out of it. And that's why there's got to be accountability with charity that leads people to work to improve their lives and then give charity themselves to other people in need. But to hold somebody in this dependent state is not loving. It's actually a cruel thing to do. And that's exactly what the United Nations with UNRWA and the world body has been doing for decades inside Gaza. They've been keeping people down, telling them you're a refugee, even though they were born in Gaza, they were raised in Gaza. You know, the people, by and large, there are not a lot of people left who were sent to Gaza from somewhere else. And in every other case around the world, if a refugee population gets one generation removed from their exodus, they're no longer considered refugees. So why is it that the Palestinians are still considered refugees 70 years after leaving their homes in what is now Israel? Well, that's because there's a political motive to this. And that's something that we should have clear-eyed understanding about. We should understand that we are being lied to by the media when they tell us that the Palestinians in Gaza are refugees. They are not refugees. They may soon become refugees if they get sent to Egypt or Jordan or somewhere else. But I think that, you know, if President Trump is serious about fixing this problem once and for all, then we've got to have the strength of will to do hard things, unpopular things, costly things that have not been tried before. And in the case of Gaza, that would be making everybody leave, or the vast majority of the people leave, finding a place for them to go, and then rebuilding Gaza from scratch as a resort city for Israel. Just moving them out. Don't the Gazans know how to fish? They've pretty much fished out everything off the coast. They do fish some, okay? Folks, please make sure you hit the like button. I always forget to do it unless somebody reminds me. So here's your reminder. While I'm talking, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go up and hit that little thumbs up button, and it tells YouTube more people need to see this content and helps us get the word out to more people around the world. And they truly are all around the world. I'm amazed at just how extensive our viewership is. We've got almost 3,000 people watching right now, and they're watching from all around the four corners of the earth, which is really awesome to me. It's like the very definition of what they call a wide flat market. Now it's really raining now. It's starting to come down. Woohoo! Yeah, that's great. All right, folks, I am going to end it right there. And we're just at 50 minutes. Folks, if you want to if you want to follow the rest of my reporting, go to chuckholton.com, and I will do a special live either today or this afternoon in East Coast time, or tomorrow. I'll do a special live just for my local supporters from Iraq, where you can ask me all the questions you want about this mission we just came out of in Syria. You can ask me everything you want. And we'll do an Ask Me Anything over on Locals, either tonight or tomorrow, East Coast time. And so you're going to want to be a paying supporter over on Locals to get access to that. So thank you very much for your time, for watching. And please do like and share this podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed to the Hot Zone for lots more content. So stay tuned. God bless you. We'll see you next time.